everyone is assuming the Arizona Cardinals are trying to tank the 2023 football season. Logically, it makes some sense as Kyler Murray is recovering from an ACL tear he suffered late last season. Murray officially had surgery to repair that injury back on January 3rd, and it's rare for even the greatest athletes to be fully recovered from ACL tears in less than a year. After Adrian Peterson rushed for 2,000 yards less than a year removed from his ACL tear, we all started to assume anyone could do that shit. Well, they can't. It's the exception, not the rule. Take a look at the Nuggets' Jamal Murray. It took him well over a year before he could recover and play, and since he has the last name Murray, I assume their knees are similar. Now, I say all that to preface this episode with the idea that the Cardinals and pretty much everyone on Earth have no idea when Kyler will be good to go. So, why would Arizona fully tank and say not just suck for a season? This is a team primed to build around Kyler Murray like never before, but they are also primed to upgrade his position like never before. So let's look at how one of the most dysfunctional teams in the NFL may have hit the lottery. That's good. Sports! Please don't be a asshole. Subscribe here. I do have Patreon shoutouts for new Patreons. JJ Promenade, Ethan S, Andrew Lee, Jonathan Haley, and Sean Wee Liver. Why support on Patreon? Well, every month for all $10 donors, we do a Zoom hangout. That's also for YouTube members, where we get together, we shoot the shit. We've got a Discord for the $10 members, and it's become a cool community. You don't have to join and be a part of it, but honestly, I don't even think I have to be a part of it. Everyone likes to talk to each other more than they do me. So that's why you should join. Also, thank you for everyone who purchased these dumb shirts. We sold over 50, which means we've raised a couple $1,000s for the Alzheimer's Association. That charity link's still below, as we have another month or so to keep raising money for it. The Arizona Cardinals are a team starting to get a little annoyed with. Like the Raiders, their issues start at the top.
My name is Michael Bidwell. I'm the president of the Arizona Cardinals Football Club.
When that's your problem, the chances of fielding a championship caliber team are small. And as a sports fan, it's a terrible position when it seems like the only way you can see your team saved is by becoming the worst team in the league. Let's set this up a little bit, though, by going back to 2018 when the Cardinals drafted quarterback Josh Rosen with pick number 10. Now, Rosen was paired with new head coach at the time, Steve Wilks. We all know that Josh Rosen and Wilks were only able to muster 3 wins that season, and that Arizona fired Wilks and traded Rosen after just 1 season, with Rosen going to Miami for a 2nd and 5th round pick. The Rosen move, shrewd, but clearly the right one. The firing of Wilks, premature. And this is where you have to start to believe that Michael Bidwell kind of sucks at his job. That 2018 coaching cycle was strange. The NFL had 7 new coaches coming in. Pat Shurmur joined the Giants. Matt Nagy went to the Bears. Frank Reich went to the Colts after Josh McDaniels backed out of the job. Matt Patricia was deemed the safest hire by SB Nation for the Lions. Whoever wrote that should have their pencils snapped in half. John Gruden signed a 10-year, $100 million deal with the Raiders, and Mike Vrabel joined the Titans. So from that round, Vrabel's the only coach to still have his job, and Frank Reich just stole the job Steve Wilks should have been given in Carolina. But it's really hard to say that Wilks deserved to be fired from Arizona after 1 year with what we know now in terms of Josh Rosen just being a bust. Michael Bidwell wanted a sexy, young, offensive-minded coach to pair with drafting Kyler Murray number 1 overall in 2019. What the team should have done, though, was keep Wilks as the head coach and hire an OC that would have been a good fit for Kyler Murray. I really think Steve Wilks would have been better at the top there, both as a general leader and then also having the Cardinals in a better position right now. Now, at that time, Steve Keim was also arrested for his extreme DUI in July of 2018. He was suspended, but according to Terry McDonough, who was the team's vice president of player personnel at the time, they were forced to communicate illegally with Keim via burner phones, per Bidwell's order. So Terry has filed for an arbitration case against Bidwell and a claim to Roger Goodell. So in hindsight, it's easy to say that, you know, you might need to be perpetually drunk like Steve Keim to draft Josh Rosen. But I think maybe Steve Keim tackling sobriety while being forced to secretly work for the team was the worst decision, both for the organization and for Steve. Now I say this to highlight that there was and is dysfunction atop the Cardinals. It's why they were the only team on earth interested in bringing in a college football coach named Cliff Kingsbury, who had exactly 2 winning seasons in 6 years at Texas Tech. His team only won 5 games with Patrick Mahomes throwing 41 TDs and for over 5,000 yards. The fact that he wasn't able to make Mahomes a consensus #1 pick should have been the first and only red flag needed to not hire him. But they hired Cliff anyway, drafted Kyler first overall in 2019, after his NFL Combine height measurement confirmed he was indeed not a garden gnome. And for a while, that looked like the right move. Murray was exciting as a rookie, got better in year 2, a lot better, and the team was in the postseason in 2021.
Pressure is picked up, Kyler! Did he get rid of it? It's intercepted!
They fleeced the Texans in 2020 and landed receiver DeAndre Hopkins in that trade, who made one of the greatest Hail Mary receptions of all time to beat Buffalo on an even better scramble and throw from Kyler Murray. They then gave Murray a 5-year, $230 million contract extension in 2022, and that's when everything went wrong. They were the only team I have ever seen manage to pay someone $230 million and simultaneously piss him off. That happened because they added a study clause to Kyler's contract, remember? Something requiring him to watch a certain amount of game film every week. A real chicken or the egg situation. Do you pay the guy who needs a homework clause, or do you slaughter the chicken and eat no fucking eggs? They built around Kyler with an aging and injury-prone roster. The 2022 season was an unmitigated disaster that ended with Murray's injury. They fired head coach Cliff Kingsbury to appease Kyler, even though I think they hired him to also appease Kyler, but then they do it all so they can tank in 2023? Those are contradictory, right? During free agency, the Cardinals lost Byron Murphy, Tristan Hill, Michael Dogby, and Zach Allen. Is it Dogby or Dogby? Because he does have that dog in him, if it is Dogby. Literally. But they lost all those guys from their D-line. They lost Cody Ford on the offensive line, and they pulled that Texans move where they signed a bunch of lower-tier free agents for 1- and 2-year contracts because they literally just need to fill out the roster. J.J. Watt, of course, retired. They made 0 splash signings, just cheap bets to hit the cap floor. Now, if you remember, that worked great for the Texans in terms of being terrible. Except, you actually have to finish the tank for that to work, right, Houston? Now, before the draft, the Cardinals had also admitted to tampering with Jonathan Gannon.
What's up, Bird Gang?
Shots.
The former Eagles defensive coordinator who became Arizona's new head coach. Now, to settle the tampering charges, the Eagles and Cards traded 3rd-round picks in the 2023 draft, with Arizona giving up the 66th overall pick in exchange for Philadelphia's 94th, and the Cardinals received a 5th-round pick next year from the Eagles. It doesn't make sense. This is a weird, bizarre incident that got glossed over, but I think things have been so weird in Arizona for the last year that they didn't want to create any additional drama. They fired GM Steve Keim as well this last offseason, who had already stepped away from the team. Now, he stepped away from the team for health reasons, but it coincided with the team firing assistant coach Sean Kugler the night before the 49ers beat them down in Mexico 38-10. He was fired for allegedly groping a woman, but later he filed legal action against Arizona claiming he was essentially mistaken for someone else. That led people to believe that he was mistaken for Steve Keim because they both departed at the same time. That was never substantiated, but the Cardinals were failing at every level. The front office was in shambles, Kyler Murray was underperforming a bit, and Cliff Kingsbury was a mess, and they finished as the third worst team in the league. They already tanked, basically. Now, they have hired new general manager Monty Ossenfort, who inherited a terrible situation. He gets an injured quarterback who people now question as the future, and like I just mentioned, has taken the cheap vet route in free agency to build this team for this year. If you can call it a build, meaning they don't give a fuck about what happens to Kyler if he does return this season, because they bled talent and did nothing to replace it. Now, that said, many loved the Cardinals draft, okay? They unanimously had a good draft. They selected offensive lineman Paris Johnson after trading out of spot number 3 and stockpiling picks from the Texans. Paris was the guy. Kyler wanted to protect him. So it's a bit strange they'd also draft Kyler's guy if their plan was to tank and get Caleb Williams, right? Regardless, everyone loved their haul of draft picks, but what people really love is the fact that the Cardinals have 2 first-round picks in 2024, theirs and the Texans. Essentially, they have 2 of the most likely worst teams' draft picks. Caleb Williams, who is considered the best quarterback prospect since Andrew Luck, is essentially theirs to lose. If they can't be the worst team in 2023, the Texans certainly could, right? So that leads us to the release of receiver DeAndre Hopkins, which I still think is stupid. I get that they pulled the Band-Aid to eat all of the cap this year, but they got nothing for him, okay? You can't be tanking and also be unhappy a guy didn't play, because reports emerged this last weekend that DeAndre Hopkins was healthy enough to play in the final 2 weeks of the season, but did not. Arizona wasn't actually in the playoff hunt. The Cardinals were 4-11 and 4-12 before those last 2 games of the season. It's not a mystery why DeAndre Hopkins wasn't going to play, so releasing Hopkins for nothing when you could have probably traded him is a move that makes Bill O'Brien look like he just sold Waystar. Technically, David Johnson is more than nothing, and that's better than what the Cardinals will get for DeAndre Hopkins. Now, that's a report that came out, so the question is, who is actually mad about Hopkins not playing? Because the Cardinals have an entirely new front office staff running things, right? New coaching staff. Me thinks it's this guy. So I went on the Cardinals subreddit to gauge how their fans are viewing this situation, and I think they're all very aware of what's going on in the desert right now. There's no denial. In fact, they seem to think they should even go further and trade Buda Baker. A, to get picks, and B, so he can play for a team that gives a shit and has a chance to win. It's nice to see Cardinals fans want to see their guys succeed anywhere else. So, Hopkins couldn't play at the end of last season, and this upcoming year, Kyler Murray isn't expected to play in the first half of the season. That's going to make the tanking process a lot easier for Arizona if that's what they are trying to do. I don't think Kyler is a great quarterback at this point, nor do I think he's one of the worst quarterbacks in the league. With the right coaching, though, and players around him, he's a perennial Pro Bowl candidate. But if things around him are falling apart, it can get ugly really quickly because he doesn't seem like the glue. He's also got the potential for insane game-changing plays like the Hail Mary I mentioned or his 23-second two-point conversion scramble against the Raiders. But for the Cardinals, if Kyler either doesn't play well enough upon his return or he just doesn't come back as quickly as we thought, then they have 2 QB prospects that they'll be quickly zeroed in on: Williams and Drake May from North Carolina. And even crazier, someone will want to trade for Kyler Murray, so they'll get even more capital to build around their new guy. GM Monty Ossenfort is in an ideal position. On one hand, he looks smart enough to acquire great draft capital to build the team. And if their 2023 draft class is as good as some think, Arizona will be in the process of their rebuild with very young talent. On the other hand, their 2023 free agency period was embarrassing, and they will pay Matt Prater $7.5 million to probably accidentally win them one too many games to actually tank. I need to see what Ossenfort does in the next free agency period before I judge him. If he and his scouts are great at drafting, Arizona is going to be fine. His inability, though, to get any comp for DeAndre Hopkins might suggest he can't negotiate for shit, which could be an issue when they have to build around Caleb Williams or Kyler Murray with free agents in addition to draft picks. More importantly, Ossenfort has to ensure Michael Bidwell shuts the hell up and stays in the background where he belongs. So if Ossenfort can strong-arm Bidwell, then Arizona could become the kings of the NFC West. There's a legit scenario where the Cardinals own 2 top 5 picks next year. Hell, they could be picking back-to-back at 1 and 2, okay, provided things go well, or poorly enough for the Texans and the Cards. In that case, the Cardinals could be looking to draft some combination of Caleb Williams, Drake May, or Marvin Harrison. And sometimes you just gotta do some crazy shit to get a generational QB. The Colts, remember, cut Peyton Manning after he missed a full season, which caused them to accidentally suck for luck. And I think the Cardinals are 100% tanking, I do, but they need to make sure it doesn't look that way. I think their biggest battle will be keeping Kyler Murray off the field, and they easily have the best chance to become the first 0-17 team in NFL history, and then be handsomely rewarded for it as they move on from their second top 10 drafted QB in the last 6 years. Question is, do they fire Jonathan Gannon if he successfully tanks for them? Thanks for watching That's Good Sports, Arizona Cardinals edition. Nobody asked for this shit. That's all right. Subscribe here and come back tomorrow for Benchwarmer Sports as we update you on everything sports worldwide.